I was wiping the grease off my hands when she said it. Not loud, not teasing, just low enough for it to slip between us like heat. "I need a stronger ride," she murmured, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Elena stood on the other side of the hood, sunlight sliding down her forearms, catching on the edge of her silver bracelet. She was 46, maybe 47, the kind of woman who didn't hide her age, but carried it like it owed her something. There was grace in how she moved, in how her blouse loosened just slightly at the collar when she leaned in to see what I was doing. I was 27, not a kid, but next to her I felt it. The raw, nervous kind of energy that makes your palms sweat for no reason. Her car had broken down in front of the garage where I worked. Nothing dramatic, just a stuttering engine, a cough of smoke, the kind of problem that gives you an excuse to linger. She'd been patient while I fixed it, asking questions that weren't really about the car. "Do you always work this late?" "Not always." "Someone waiting for you?" I've shaken my head. "No one." Now, with the engine humming again, she stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell the faint trace of her perfume. Not floral, something darker. It mixed with the smell of oil and hot metal, and I didn't know what to do with that combination, except stand there and feel it press against my ribs. "You're good at this," she said softly. "You don't rush." Her tone wasn't casual. There was a pause, like she wanted to see what I'd do with the space between her words. I laughed. Too quick, too awkward. "Well, engines take patience." She said, eyes narrowing a little. "So do people." Her gaze stayed on me, longer than it should have. I noticed the faint line near her mouth when she smiled, the way her eyes softened but never looked away. It wasn't the kind of attention you get from someone passing through. It was sharper, deliberate, like she was trying to remember what it felt like to be curious about someone again. I wanted to say something, anything that didn't sound stupid, but all I could manage was, "You should be good now. It'll drive smooth." She looked at the car, then back at me. "I don't think that's what I meant." A quiet laugh escaped her, almost embarrassed, but her cheeks didn't flush. Only her fingers fidgeted with her keys. I caught the smallest tremor there, and something in me tightened. I'd seen older women before, sure, but not like her. Not someone who seemed both in control and on the verge of something she didn't want to name. The air between us changed. The sound of the running engine filled the silence like static. She reached into her purse, pulled out a folded bill and held it out. "For your time. I don't need." "Take it." Her voice softened again. "It's not for the car." I hesitated, then took it just to end the tension. But when our fingers brushed, she didn't move away. The touch was nothing, a second, maybe two, but it burned longer than it should have. She finally turned toward the driver's seat. I stepped back, the wrench still in my hand, pretending to check my work. Before she got in, she looked at me one last time through the open door. "You said you close at 6? "Yeah." Her lips curved, not quite a smile, not quite a question. "Then maybe I'll stop by again." And before I could answer, the door shut. The car rolled forward, the taillights flickering in the dusk, and I was left standing there, watching her disappear into the blur of streetlights, the air still warm where her hand had touched mine. She came back 3 days later. Same car, same parking spot, same half-smile that didn't reach her eyes. Only this time, there was nothing wrong with the engine. "I thought you said it would run smooth," Elena said lightly, leaning against the hood. "It does." "Then maybe it's me that's stalling." She said it like a joke, but her voice cracked just enough for me to hear something underneath. Fatigue, maybe, or the kind of loneliness that takes years to form. I wiped my hands on the rag, not trusting my face. "Want me to take a look anyway?" She shrugged, pretending to think it over. "Wouldn't want to waste your time." "You won't." For a moment, she just watched me, still unreadable. Then she opened the door and popped the hood again. I knew it didn't need fixing. I think she did too. As I leaned in, the smell of her perfume returned, soft and steady, threading through the scent of warm metal. Her arm brushed against mine, once accidentally, then again slower. She didn't move away this time. I felt the edge of her sleeve against my skin, the faint texture of linen and warmth underneath. My pulse jumped. I pretended to focus on the carburetor. You live alone? She asked quietly. Yeah. Always been that way? Pretty much. I hesitated, then added, You. She gave a soft exhale, almost a laugh, but not really. Was married once. Didn't stick. Sorry. Don't be. He wasn't. She said it like she'd rehearsed it 100 times and still didn't believe it. Her hands were steady on the fender, but her eyes weren't. They flickered away, like the memory still burned if she looked at it too long. Silence stretched between us, filled only by the ticking of the cooling engine. I wanted to ask her more, but I didn't want to sound like I cared too much. So instead I said, You should take it out for a drive later. Sometimes machines just need to move. Her lips curved. And people? Same thing, I guess. Something softened in her. A small exhale, a shift of her shoulders, the kind of surrender that doesn't look like it. When I closed the hood, she stepped closer. Too close. Her breath grazing my neck as she reached for the latch. I froze. She didn't touch me, not really, but the air between us trembled like something about to break. You missed a spot, she said, brushing her thumb over the streak of grease on my cheek. Her touch lingered a second too long, soft, deliberate, dangerous. Then she smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her, and stepped back before I could say anything. I'll keep it running, she said quietly. Her words hung in the air as she turned away, her heels clicking against the pavement, fading slowly, but the warmth of her touch stayed, stubborn and alive, like something I'd never be able to wash off. Rain started before she arrived that evening, a steady drizzle that turned the asphalt into mirrors. I was closing up when her headlights cut through the fog, slow and deliberate. She stepped out of the car in a long tan coat, hair damp at the edges, eyes searching for something that wasn't the garage. You're still here, she said, sounding almost surprised. I was just locking up. Her gaze lingered on the door in my hand, then on me. Then maybe I'm lucky. I swallowed hard, pretending to check the clock. It's past 7. I know. She hesitated. I didn't want to go home yet. That made 2 of us. I let her inside to wait out the rain. The light buzzed overhead, yellow and soft, making everything quieter than it should have been. She rubbed her hands together for warmth, her bracelets catching the light like tiny sparks. I used to like the rain, she said. Now it just feels heavier. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded, watching the drops roll down her hairline. She noticed. You stare too long, Noah. I didn't mean to. I didn't say stop. Came out without humor, a whisper shaped like an invitation. Then the door creaked open, sudden, loud, and both of us jumped back. My coworker, Mark, poked his head in. Yo man, you still, oh, sorry. Elena straightened immediately, her voice turning smooth, almost cold. Just a customer, she said. Mark's eyes flicked between us, a hint of smirk forming. Sure thing. See you tomorrow. The door shut again, leaving behind the faint smell of wet air and the echo of something almost ruined. She let out a breath she'd been holding. That was close. Yeah. Her eyes found mine again, less guarded now, more exposed. You know what they'd think, right? A woman my age, hanging around some mechanic half her years. I don't care what they think. You should. But her voice betrayed her. It wavered, softening in the middle like she didn't believe her own warning. She took a small step closer. I could feel the warmth of her body, the faint tremor of her breathing. Her hand hovered near my arm, not quite touching, just testing the space between. Why are you here, Elena? I asked quietly. She looked up at me, rain still caught in her lashes. Because you look at me like I'm not finished. For a second, the world went still, the rain, the lights, the air. Everything narrowed to the space between our faces, her breath ghosting across my lips. I didn't move. Neither did she. Then her phone buzzed. The sound broke everything. She stepped back fast, fumbling for it. It's my sister, she whispered, like an apology. I nodded, but the ache in my chest didn't fade. Before she left, she turned in the doorway. The rain framed her like static, her eyes darker than the sky. This doesn't go anywhere, she said, voice trembling just enough to sound like a lie. And then she was gone, leaving behind the smell of rain and perfume, and a silence that felt heavier than before. For 2 weeks, she didn't come by. I told myself it was for the best, that maybe we'd both felt the edge of something too sharp to keep playing with. But I still caught myself watching every silver sedan that slowed near the garage, still hearing the echo of her voice in the back of my mind. Then, one evening, she walked in. No pretense this time. No car trouble. Just her. "You weren't supposed to miss me," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but her eyes weren't. They darted, searching for a place to rest, for safety, or maybe for me. "I didn't say I did," I said. She took another step closer. "You didn't have to." Her coat was damp from the drizzle outside, shoulders glistening faintly under the fluorescent light. She smelled like rain and something faintly sweet, jasmine maybe. When she shrugged the coat off, a drop of water fell from her hair onto my wrist. I didn't move. Neither did she. "I told myself I wouldn't come back," she said. "I'm old enough to know better." And her lips parted. "And yet, here I am." The words hit harder than they should have. I could feel my heart stuttering, trying to match her breath. "I think about that night," I admitted quietly. "The way you said my name." Her eyes flickered, a mix of fear and something deeper. "Don't," she whispered. "You make it real when you say it like that." But it is real. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then she reached up, slowly, and brushed her fingers against the streak of oil still on my forearm. The touch was feather-light, but my body reacted like a live wire. "I shouldn't want this," she said. "You're too young. You'll wake up one day and wonder what you were doing with a woman who already knows how it ends." "Maybe I don't care how it ends." Her breath hitched. I stepped closer until the space between us was just a heartbeat's width. The back of my hand grazed her cheek, tucking a strand of wet hair behind her ear. She leaned into the touch before she could stop herself. The smallest, most dangerous kind of surrender. The air changed thicker, slower. Her hand found my chest, fingers trembling against the fabric. I could feel her pulse through her skin. "Say something," I whispered. "I can't." "Then don't think." Her eyes lifted dark, wet, and searching, and I could see every unspoken thing between us collapsing into that tiny space. My hand slid to the back of her neck, hers curled weakly into my shirt. We stood like that, suspended between want and ruin. And just when she tilted forward, just when the world seemed to disappear around us, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. We froze. Her lips hovered an inch from mine. "Not here," she breathed, voice trembling, eyes wide with everything she wasn't ready to lose. And then she stepped back. The space between us suddenly colder, sharper. But the look she gave me said what her voice couldn't. Next time, it wouldn't stop there. The next day, I told myself not to wait for her. But by dusk, I was outside the garage again, leaning against the wall, phone in hand, pretending I had somewhere else to be. When her car finally appeared, it wasn't her driving. It was Mark. My stomach dropped before I even understood why. He climbed out, smirking. "You know that woman you've been fixing cars for? Elena, right?" I forced a shrug. "What about her?" "She's the new real estate consultant for the owner. Technically, she's evaluating which properties to keep, including this garage." The words hit like a wrench to the ribs. "She didn't say that." He grinned. "Guess she didn't say everything." When he left, I stood there, the air thick with engine oil and betrayal I didn't want to name. That night, she came by again. Same perfume, same steady voice, but I couldn't see her the same way. "You knew," I said before she could speak. She blinked. "What?" "That you're here for the sale." Her face changed, a flicker of shock, then regret. "I wasn't lying," she said. "Just not telling." "So everything?" I gestured vaguely between us, heat rising in my throat. "Was that just convenient timing?" Her lips parted, then closed again. "Don't do that. Don't make this ugly. I'm trying to understand it." "You want the truth?" she said quietly, stepping closer. The first time I stopped, I meant to leave right after. But then you looked at me like you'd been waiting your whole life to look at someone that way. And she stopped, shaking her head. I didn't mean for this to happen. The silence that followed wasn't clean. It was raw, breathing, alive. I could see her fighting herself, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the sleeve of her coat, her body shifting like she couldn't stand still. You think I planned this? She whispered. You think I wanted to feel like this again? Her voice cracked, and that did it. The anger in me started to melt, replaced by something worse. Understanding. I stepped toward her before I could think. The distance between us evaporated. She didn't back away this time. Her breath caught, and I could feel the heat radiating from her skin, the pulse at her throat jumping beneath the soft line of her jaw. I don't know what's real anymore, I said. This is, she whispered, placing her palm flat against my chest. The touch stopped everything, thought, air, time. Then she looked up at me, eyes full of guilt and want tangled together. But it can't stay like this. Her hand slipped away, leaving a cold print of warmth behind. She turned toward the door, voice quiet but steady. Tomorrow morning, I'll tell them to keep the place open. It wasn't a promise. It was a choice, one that would make everything harder and impossible to turn back from. It was after hours again. The garage empty, the lights humming low, the smell of rain thick in the air. I knew she would come. I didn't know what I'd say when she did. When Elena walked in, she didn't speak. She just stood there in the doorway, eyes tired, hair slightly undone from the wind. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Human. You didn't have to come back, I said. She gave a small, broken laugh. That's all I seem to do lately. Come back where I shouldn't. I stepped closer, careful, slow. And yet you're here. I told them to keep the place open, she said quietly. But I didn't do it for the garage. Something in me cracked. Then why? Her eyes met mine, steady now. Because you're the only thing that feels alive anymore. It wasn't supposed to sound like that, not so final, not so full. I felt it in my chest, a dull ache that spread like heat. The space between us dissolved. I could feel her breath when she spoke again. You should tell me to leave, Noah. I shook my head. I can't. Her hand trembled as she reached up. Not to pull me closer, not yet, but to trace the line of my jaw. The touch was light, reverent, dangerous. You don't know what this costs me, she whispered. I don't care. You will. Her words trembled, but her body didn't move away. My hand found her waist, the thin fabric of her blouse warm under my palm. Her breath hitched, not from surprise, but from finally letting herself feel it. For a long moment, there were no words, just the sound of rain tapping the roof, the hum of electricity, our hearts struggling to keep quiet. Then she leaned in, her forehead resting against mine. If we do this, she whispered, there's no pretending after. Then don't pretend. Her eyes closed. My thumb brushed her lower lip, slow, uncertain. She tilted her head just slightly, enough for my resolve to disappear. The kiss didn't happen, not quite. It hovered there, suspended, held back by the last threads of fear and reason. But it didn't matter. In that silence, with her breath mingling with mine, everything between us had already shifted. She opened her eyes, tears glinting but not falling, and said the one thing that finally broke me. I thought I'd forgotten what it felt like to want something I shouldn't. And then, for the first time, she didn't step away. The distance vanished, the world tilted, and we stopped fighting what had already chosen us. Part 7. After the storm. 500 words. Morning light bled through the half-open shutters, turning the garage into gold and dust. Elena sat on the hood of her car, coat draped beside her, hair still damp from the night before. I handed her a mug of coffee, both of us pretending to focus on the steam instead of the quiet. So, she said softly, this is what reckless looks like. Feels calmer than I expected, I said. She smiled, small but real. That's because it's the kind that counts. We didn't need to name what happened or what almost did. It lived in the space between our words, in the quiet way she leaned against my shoulder, in how my hand brushed hers without thought this time. She looked at me steady, clear-eyed. You know this isn't simple, right? I never wanted simple. Her lips parted like she might argue. Then she didn't. Instead, she exhaled and rested her head against me. Her body was warm, the weight of her familiar now. I spent years convincing myself I was done, she murmured. Done feeling, done trying. You ruined that. I smiled faintly. You say that like it's a bad thing. She laughed under her breath. The sound soft, breaking something in the air around us. It's terrifying, she admitted. But I don't want to unlearn it. The world outside began to move again. Cars, voices, the ordinary rhythm returning. But it felt distant, like we were standing still while everything else passed us by. She turned to face me, her hands slipping into mine, fingers lacing without hesitation this time. You'll leave someday, she said. Maybe, I said honestly. But not today. Her eyes softened. That's enough. We stayed like that, quiet, close, unpolished, the kind of silence that doesn't need to end. When she leaned forward and pressed her lips to my forehead, it wasn't passion anymore. It was something deeper, acceptance, maybe, forgiveness. The age, the rules, the reasons, they all fell away. There was just us, two people who'd stopped pretending they weren't looking for something real. She whispered, let's not fix what isn't broken. And for once, I didn't argue. Outside, the rain had stopped. Light spilled across the concrete floor, bright and clean. The kind of light that feels like beginning, not aftermath. I watched her smile, soft and tired, and realized I wasn't waiting anymore. We were already here. The rain had stopped by morning, leaving the streets slick and shining. The garage smelled of metal and coffee, faint warmth against the chill outside. Elena stood by the open door, her coat folded over one arm, her eyes tracing the gray horizon like she wasn't sure what came next. I watched her from the workbench, afraid to speak first and break whatever peace had settled overnight. You're quiet, she said, without turning around, trying not to say the wrong thing. She smiled. I could hear it in her voice. Since when did we start worrying about that? When she finally faced me, her expression was softer than I'd ever seen it. The lines around her mouth, once tight from holding too much in, seemed to ease. You look tired, she said. I didn't sleep much. Neither did I. For a long time, neither of us moved. Then she stepped closer, slow and sure, until I could feel the warmth of her body through the cool morning air. Her hand brushed against mine, tentative at first, then firm. I keep waiting for this to feel wrong, she said quietly. And it doesn't. It just feels real. Her words landed with the kind of weight that doesn't crush. It steadies you. I turned my hand over, lacing my fingers through hers. Her skin was cool, but her grip was certain. I was scared, she admitted, of what people would think, of how much I wanted to stay. I smiled faintly. I was scared you'd leave. I tried, she said. It didn't work. We both laughed, quietly, the sound small but enough to fill the space around us. Then she stepped closer, her free hand finding my chest, resting there as if to check I was real. Do you regret it? She asked. No, I shook my head. I think regret was the thing keeping us apart. Her gaze softened. She tilted her head slightly, eyes flicking down, then back up. You really shouldn't know how to say things like that at your age. And yet you're still here, I teased. God help me, she whispered, smiling now. A real one, the kind that reached her eyes. I pulled her closer until her forehead rested against mine. For a moment, everything else disappeared. The hum of the lights, the morning chill, the noise of the city just waking up. There was only her breath, her warmth, her heartbeat steady against mine. She sighed, almost into my neck. This doesn't have to be forever. It just has to be honest. That's enough, I said, and it was. When we finally stepped outside, the air smelled clean, the sky pale and new. She slipped her hand back into mine as we walked to her car. No hesitation this time, no pretending. Just two people who'd stopped fighting what made them feel alive. Before getting in, She turned to me. You fixed more than my car, you know? Yeah, I said, smiling. You made sure of it. She kissed my forehead light, certain, then leaned back just far enough to whisper, see you tomorrow. And she would. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?